The night was silent except for the rustling of dry leaves as the wind carried them along the empty street. Underneath the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a bundle lay still in the cold air. A single wail broke through the darkness, soft and weak, as if even the child knew there was no one left to listen. Her name was Ria. She had no memory of her mother, no image of the woman who had carried her for 9 months, only to leave her behind. All she had was the story whispered in hushed voices, the tale of a mother who had chosen love over her own flesh and blood. Neha was only 19 when she met Vikram. He was charming, reckless, and had a way of making her forget the suffocating reality of her life. Her marriage to Arjun had been arranged when she was barely 17, a decision made by her parents with little thought for love. Arjun was a decent man, kind, responsible, but he was not the fire that burned inside her. When Neha discovered she was pregnant, a heavy weight settled over her heart. She had dreamed of freedom, of running away to a life filled with adventure and passion. Motherhood was a change she did not want. Then Vikram came back into her life. "We can leave," he whispered to her one night, his fingers trailing down her arm. "Just you and me. No past, no ties." She hesitated, glancing at her swollen belly. "And the baby?" Vikram's face hardened. "A child will only hold us back. If you want to be free, you need to let go. Let go." The words echoed in her mind, twisting and turning until they became her truth. One cold winter night, when Ria was barely 3 months old, Neha crept out of the house while Arjun slept. She did not look back. She did not even leave a note. The mother, Neha, running through the streets, her breath visible in the cold air as she clutches her suitcase. Neha stepping onto a train, her face hidden as it departs into the distance. When Arjun woke the next morning, the house was eerily silent. At first, he thought Neha had gone to the market, but as the hours passed and she did not return, dread settled into his bones. He searched every corner of the house, his mind refusing to accept what his heart already knew. Then he saw it, the closet where Neha kept her things, empty. The drawers, bare. She was gone. His hands trembled as he picked up Ria from her crib, holding her close. The tiny baby cooed softly, unaware of the loss that had just shattered her world. Arjun sat on the bed, staring at the door Neha had walked out of. Why? Had he not been good enough? Had their child meant nothing to her? Days turned into weeks, and the pain of Neha's betrayal festered inside him like an open wound. He tried to be strong for Ria, but every time he looked into her innocent eyes, he saw Neha's face staring back at him. The anger grew. The resentment built.
"I can't do this," he whispered. The burden was too much. The reminders of Neha were everywhere, in Ria's cry, in her tiny hands, in the way she searched for a mother who would never return.
That night, under the cover of darkness, Arjun did the unthinkable. He left Ria at the steps of a temple, a silent offering to the gods. Then, without looking back, he disappeared into the night. Ria was found the next morning by an elderly priest, Baba Anil. His heart ached as he looked at the tiny child, wrapped in nothing but a thin cloth, her cheeks red from the cold. Baba Anil lifted her into his arms. "You are not abandoned, little one. Not anymore." The temple became Ria's home. The priests and devotees cared for her, feeding her, singing to her as she grew. She ran barefoot across the stone floors, her laughter echoing through the ancient halls. But outside the temple's walls, the world was unkind. People called her the abandoned girl. They whispered about her mother's sins, about the father who had thrown her away like she was nothing. And Ria, even as a child, understood. She was unwanted. By the time Ria was 16, she had stopped asking about her parents. She had long learned that love was something people gave when it was convenient. But deep inside, she still carried the unanswered question, why? Why had her mother left? Why had her father abandoned her? One day, while cleaning the temple, she overheard a conversation between Baba Anil and an old woman. "Her mother ran away with some man," the woman said. "And her father? He left her to die." Ria's hands froze. The words burned into her mind like fire. She had always known she was abandoned, but hearing it like this, so blunt, so cruel, shattered something inside her. That night, she made a decision. She would find them. Her search led her through forgotten streets and faded memories. It took months of asking questions, following whispers of a woman who had disappeared long ago. Then, one day, she found her. Ria boarding a bus alone, heading toward an uncertain future. Ria arriving in a coastal town, staring at the unfamiliar streets. Neha opening the door, confusion spreading across her face. Neha's lips trembling as she whispers, "Who are you?" Ria in the foreground, Neha in the background, the distance between them more than just physical. Ria finally saying, "I am the child you left behind." Neha stumbling backward, tears welling in her eyes. Neha's voice breaking, her words barely audible as guilt consumes her. Neha looking at an old photograph of baby Ria she had hidden away, Ria walking away, not waiting for an apology. Arjun turning to see a young woman standing at the edge of his farm. His eyes widening in shock. Ria walking toward him, determination in every step. Father and daughter standing face to face, the years of pain between them. Arjun collapsing onto a bench, covering his face. His broken voice, "I never stopped thinking about you." Ria whispering, "Then why did you leave me?" Arjun admitting, "Because I was weak." Ria swallowed the lump in her throat. "I spent my whole life wondering why I wasn't enough for either of you." Tears welled in his eyes. "You were always enough, Ria. It was us who failed you." Ria took a deep breath. She had come for answers, but she realized now that no answer could heal the wound they had left in her. Young women, Ria's eyes hardening, realization dawning that no excuse would ever be enough. So she did the only thing she could. She walked away, Ria standing by the ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore. She returned to the temple, not as the abandoned girl, but as someone who had survived. She built a life for herself, helping other children who had been left behind, giving them the love she had never received. She was not broken. She was not unwanted. She was stronger than all of them. Baba Anil watching her with pride. Her past self, the abandoned baby, fading into the strong woman she has become. Ria standing on the temple steps, bathed in golden light. A single tear of relief rolling down her cheek. The words "the forgotten child" appearing on screen as the wind carries her whispered words, "I am enough."